Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. I'm Reverend Dina McFeeters, and I'm honored to serve as Associate Minister and welcome you to our online worship service today. At First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee, we welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you and all your heart longs to set down. During the COVID-19 public health emergency, First Church in-person activities have been moved online. Summer worship is at 9 a.m. only through Labor Day weekend. We offer all ages religious education every Sunday at 10 a.m. online, with pre-K and kindergarten at 11:30 a.m. and youth group on select dates throughout the summer. Sign up for the RE Weekly Update to learn more about ways to connect with our families, faith, and community. You can find the links in your live stream chat now. Join us for a virtual coffee hour this morning after service, where we chat in small groups. You can find the meeting link in your live stream chat. Visitors and members are encouraged to connect. Please join me to connect and reflect this Thursday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. online. You're also invited to a drop-in online poetry contemplation group at 9 a.m. Wednesday mornings with Lynn Jacoby, our membership development coordinator, and game nights on Thursday evenings. You can find all the links in your Friday announcements. Once again, I welcome you to our worship service this morning by inviting you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. I'm pleased to introduce our pulpit guest this morning, First Church member Omega Burckhardt. Omega is entering her final year of seminary at Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago and is a candidate for ministry. Omega served as the intern minister at Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Racine and will begin an internship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Rockford, Illinois in August. Her areas of interest include, as well as the cultivation of relationships within the Iglesia de la Gran Comunidad, a Spanish-speaking UU online congregation. Omega and her family have been members at First Church for 10 years. Let's hear the opening words from Omega.
Caminante, son tus huellas el camino, y nada más. Caminante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Al andar se hace camino, y al volver la vista atrás, se ve la senda que nunca se ha de volver a pisar. Caminante, no hay camino, sino estelas en la mar. And nothing more. Wanderer, there is no road. The road is made by making the journey itself. By journeying, one makes the path, and upon glancing behind, one sees the path that never will be traveled again. Wanderer, there is no road, only rolling waves upon the sea. These words by Spanish poet Antonio Machado beckon us to consider the journey, both the literal movement on the pilgrim's path and the journey that is life itself. We, the community of this church, the citizens of this city, and the rest of our cousins on this planet, we are on a journey together right now in these uncertain times. Join me today in contemplating the gifts and the lessons, the blessings and the anxieties of the pilgrim's journey. Let us meditate on all that we pack and discard along the way, of all that we unwrap and display and stow away again when we think we're done after our experience is over, only to realize that we can never completely unpack after our journey, because our journey has no finite end. Come, let us worship together. We have a candle of life this morning to honor the death of one of our church members. I am sorry to say that Norman family close by. Norm had cancer that spread beyond the help of treatment. Lovingly cared for by his family, he entered home hospice care a few weeks ago. He and his wife Judy were married for 61 years. Norm was 91 years old and was a member of our congregation for 13 years. The family gathered privately to share some memories of Norm earlier this week. As is our custom in this church, whenever we have a birth, an adoption, or a death among our members, we light a candle of life. Today we light this candle in honor of Norman John Fons. Today we contemplate all of the journeys of our lives. Reverend Angela Herrera's poem, Prayer for Travelers, was written in a pre-COVID context for those crossing borders in Camino, journeying for a better life for themselves and their families. Travelers, many of whom are still stuck at those borders, caught in the liminal space of mid-journey. I'd like to read this prayer in poem form today, both in Spanish and in English, because I've found that the words have taken on a new meaning in this pandemic time. We are all on a journey, my friends, even though many, perhaps most of us, are not physically moving. We are journeying to a new consciousness, a new way of being with ourselves and with others in community. Un camino nuevo, a new path forward. Join me in a spirit of contemplation and prayer. This is a prayer for all the travelers, for the ones who start out in beauty, who fall from grace, who step gingerly looking for the way back. And for those who are born into the margins, who travel from one liminal space to another, crossing boundaries in search of center. This is a prayer for those ones whose births are passing from darkness to darkness, who all their lives are drawn toward the light and keep moving. And for those whose journeys are a winding road that begins and ends in the same place, though only when the journey is completed do they finally know where they are. For all the travelers, young and old, aching and joyful, weary and full of life, the ones who are here and the ones who are not here, the ones who are like you and they're all like you, and the ones who are different, for in some ways we each travel alone. This is a prayer for traveling mercies and sure-footedness, for clear vision, for bread, for your body and spirit, for water, for your safe arrival, and for everyone you see along the way. Esta oración es para todos los viajeros, para los que comienzan en la belleza y caen de la gracia, quienes caminan tímidamente buscando la manera de volver, y para los que nacen en los márgenes, viajando de un lugar liminal a otro, cruzando fronteras en busca del centro. Es una oración para aquellos cuyo nacimiento es el paso de oscuridad a oscuridad, aquellos que se sienten atraídos por la luz y avanzan hacia ella. Y para aquellos cuyas jornadas son un camino sinuoso que comienza y termina en el mismo lugar, aunque solo al terminar sabrán por fin dónde están. Para todos los viajeros jóvenes y viejos, dolientes y alegres, cansados y llenos de vida, los presentes y los ausentes, los que son como tú, y todos son como tú, y los que son distintos, porque de alguna manera todos viajamos solos. Esta es una oración por la misericordia, para que andes con pie firme y visión clara, por el pan para tu cuerpo y tu espíritu, por el agua para que llegues seguro y para todos aquellos que encuentres en el camino.
Good morning, friends. My name is Beth Monhollen, and I am honored to serve as your worship associate today, albeit virtually. This past week, a stray Facebook comment from a friend reminded me of a bumper sticker I saw once that still makes me chuckle years later. It simply said, "Where are we going, and why are we in this handbasket?" While hell in a handbasket may seem like a humorously apt description for 2020, it got me to thinking about all the times in my life, including now, when I've wondered where I'm going and what I'm doing. Times like these, when the world is so visibly on fire, I have some friends who tend toward existential dread, who take a sort of comfort in the meaninglessness of it all. And while I don't believe in a preordained pattern or that everything happens for a reason, I do believe we have the power to make meaning out of life's chaos. The power, if you will, to recognize and name the handbasket we're in, and if we're very lucky, to choose which direction we go next. For me, part of making meaning of where I am right now is looking back and knowing that in so many moments in my past, I had no idea where I was headed. If someone had told me when I was 13 and new to Milwaukee that I would grow to love the city and call it home, I wouldn't have believed them. If someone had told me when I was 21 that I would someday fall in love with a man and build a wonderful life with him, I would have thought it impossible. And if someone had told me when I was 26 that I would choose a thriving career in higher education, I would have said no way. If someone told me when I was 33 that within a decade, theater would grow to hurt my heart and I would walk away from it entirely, I couldn't have imagined it. And if someone had told me when I was 39 that grief from my grandmother's death would open doors of trauma and depression and anxiety inside of me, I would have said, no, those doors are long closed. And if someone had told me, even one short year ago, that I would commit to divinity school in the midst of a global pandemic and anti-racism uprisings, I would have said, not yet, I'm not ready. And yet here I am, on a path forged by chance and choice. And while it may still feel like I'm not ready for the changes to come, in this time, in this moment, I'm open to the possibilities that what I want will change, that what I am dreaming will transform, and that who I am, 10 years from now, will only bear a slight resemblance to who I am today. And even when it feels that I am in a handbasket being swung wildly about by fate and that I cannot see where I'm going, I will trust that just like all those other moments in my past, that I am going where I need to go. I think that we can all trust that.
A couple of years ago, in a very different time and context, I went out to lunch with a friend. We had chosen a favorite local restaurant that specializes in cuisine from the other side of the globe. Our love of complex flavors beckoned us back time and time again to that small restaurant. A place I hope to get to visit again soon, though the current situation in our city and country makes me think it will probably be a while before I indulge in lunch buffets with friends. That day, as she and I walked through the line at the buffet, chatting as we picked out which appetizers would accompany us back to the table, my friend said, suddenly pointing at her feet, "Look, I'm wearing my Camino boots. I have felt so powerful all day, like I could do anything." I laughed. I knew exactly what she meant. I have had the same feeling when I put on my well-worn hiking boots. I exclaimed to her, "I know, when I wear mine, I feel like I'm coming home." And then I stopped, right in front of the desserts. How curious. Why would I equate the wearing of my hiking boots, a symbol of movement and travel, of adventure and activity, to coming home? And of course, now as I wear those very same hiking boots for yard work and for walks around the parks of my very local neighborhood, with no visions of far-flung adventures or hiking trips or pilgrimages on my calendar, the idea of a journey has taken on a very different meaning. I can't travel. I don't want to travel. I want to do my part to preserve my health and that of other people as much as I possibly can. Of insight about my pilgrimage experience, the one my friend referred to while pointing to her Camino boots, kept coming years after our pilgrimage technically ended. What I have realized is that even while I reached my intended destination of the pilgrimage years ago, I continue to unpack the learnings of that experience, and I expect I will continue to unpack them for years to come. Some of what I thought I would learn turned out to not be important, and some knowledge or preconceived ideas I brought with me turned out not to be true. There were ideas and items I had to discard to make way for new concepts, new learning, a new understanding of myself and my place in this world. In the summer of 2015, what turned out to be one of my final duties as visiting assistant professor of Spanish at Marquette University was to lead a group of undergraduate students through northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago, the Way of St. James. This Catholic pilgrimage route dates back to the Middle Ages, when the devout, looking for absolution of their sins, began their arduous treks from all over Europe to the buried remains of St. James the Apostle in Santiago de Compostela, Spain. There are many different paths, the most popular being the French route, extending across the mountains and plains, starting in France and ending on the western coast of the Iberian Peninsula in Galicia, originally inhabited centuries ago by Celtic explorers. Our group from Marquette would be doing only a portion of the walk, about 250 miles total. But thinking this would be a responsibility that would require the help of some serious moral support, I managed to convince two friends to travel with me, the one from the lunch buffet and another mutual friend. We prepared to set off in May, and throughout the spring leading up to our journey, our group grew in number, a Milwaukeean fellowship of the Camino of a sort. The group consisted of my fellow Marquette professor, who was also a Methodist minister, his daughter, my two friends from Milwaukee, my college roommate from San Francisco who decided to join us, my father, and a group of ill-prepared undergraduate Marquette students, most of whom who did not speak Spanish. The dynamics of this group, I assure you, are enough to fill a different kind of sermon entirely. Now, in order to prepare for walking every day for weeks, we had all studied maps. We had purchased new hiking boots. We'd gone on long walks at home in the previous months, sometimes backpacks filled with sacks of potatoes or canned goods to mimic carrying the loads of clothes and toiletries we'd later need. Now, I had lived in Spain before, actually in the city where the Camino ends, so I was appointed tour leader and translator. I prepared our route and made arrangements. As we got closer to departure, we weighed our backpacks, squirting out half tubes of toothpaste to give up just a few ounces so maybe we could carry an extra pair of socks, just in case. In other words, we packed with a capital P. Now, a few general words about packing. Some of us are great at it. Some of us are expert packers with a capital P. We neatly fold our clothes into our backpacks or suitcases. Some of us go the extra mile and put clothing in Ziploc bags and squeeze the air out. Some of us create elaborate itineraries. And there are others of us who throw it in a bag and hope for the best. I'm somewhere in the middle usually, but being responsible for a group of people, I went the extra mile and planned for everything. My backpack was perfectly packed. It was a thing of beauty. No pocket underutilized. Now, I want you to hold in your mind the image of the last packed suitcase or backpack you created. What did it look like? How well was it packed? Not all of us have traveled, and certainly we know that not all travel is the privileged or desired travel of pilgrimage. So perhaps imagine instead any well-organized small space. We'll return to the image of the backpack or that space in a moment. We prepare for our journeys in our own ways. If we are fortunate to be planning a trip or a family vacation, we usually have the time and energy and excitement to literally map out how our journey will go. In other cases, perhaps our journey is unexpected, an emergency trip, or fleeing from danger. Shares in her book, Pilgrimage, The Sacred Art, that there are 3 major phases in a pilgrimage. Those are separation, transition, and incorporation. These 3 phases are natural cycles and can be seen in other areas of our lives, perhaps in a job change or a move, maybe when a child leaves home, maybe in any kind of prolonged experience that requires intense learning, like the one that we are collectively living through right now. In a pilgrimage, you need separation from your daily routine to focus on only your immediate needs and to give time for contemplation. It is a blossom for letting yourself investigate and feel those emotions. This meant on the Camino, for me, a limit to clothing, shoes, to decisions about route. In fact, the route is marked by yellow arrows or the Viera scallop shell of the pilgrim. In the event you are lost in thought while walking, stop, look around, find the shell or the arrow, follow it, continue. If only the rest of our journeys in life were so easily marked. In our current context marked by COVID-19, perhaps this separation has been literal too. Our children are separated from their schools and their friends. Some of us have had to modify work routines or stop working altogether. In an effort to slow the virus, we distance socially from our communities, a literal separation that we mourn. And of course, some of us have lost loved ones. Metaphorically, too, we are separated. We are distanced from our idealized world where we thought this kind of thing couldn't happen, or in moments of hubris, couldn't possibly happen to us. These separations have caused us to think very hard, to contemplate and meditate on what society and community and care of the most vulnerable means to us. This separation is a journey. It is not a pilgrimage we choose, but it is a journey that we must never. Where are we going? And why are we in this handbasket? The transition phrase, the second phrase, according to Kujawa, on a pilgrimage, happens somewhere about the time you become annoyed with your journey. The moment when you find yourself distracted, and you know it, and you lose patience with yourself because you have realized you are distracted. Maybe it's the moment when you think that you just can't anymore. It's not worth it. Those of us who have born children may recognize that transition is the moment in childbirth where we think that perhaps it will never end. For me, on the Camino, my moment of transition happened when I had the realization that I was becoming annoyed with the frequent greetings of other pilgrims on the trail. You see, the custom greeting is Buen Camino. In English, this might translate to something like, have a good walk, or happy paths to you, something akin to have a good day or bon voyage, but rooted in a very particular context. It can be used as a hello or a goodbye. The sheer numbers of people, largely an international and intergenerational group, that crossed paths every day meant that I heard this greeting constantly. I started saying it in different voices, just for variety. I sang it. Sometimes I mumbled it. And I'm pretty sure I dreamed Buen Camino at night in the hostels as I slept. My transition started to come to a close when I turned my annoyance to gratitude and amazement that I was sharing this experience if only for a fleeting amount of time, with so many people, each of us on our own path, each of us learning about ourselves, most of us united in language by only that single phrase, an acknowledgement that we were midway and not yet arrived at our destination, that our spiritual journey was still in progress. We weren't home yet. This current phase on the COVID journey sure feels like a transition period to me. People are anxious and tired of social distancing. It's summer and some of us long for the normal routines of this beautiful weather in Wisconsin. We miss our friends and our families. Many of us mourn for those who have gotten sick and others who have died. Many of us mourn that we know so many more will get sick. And many of us are afraid that so many others seem to not be taking it seriously. We want it to be over. We think perhaps safety measures aren't worth it. We aren't up to the task. But our journey is still in progress. We might be staying at home a lot, but we aren't home yet, at least when it comes to the end of this pandemic experience. The third phase of a pilgrimage is incorporation. It happens not usually when we think it should. We think it happens upon arrival at our destination. I thought it happened when I walked into Santiago and saw the cathedral where St. James' remains were buried. I was wrong. That was not the end of my journey. What I didn't realize until much later, coming home was the most challenging phase of the pilgrimage, because coming home meant unpacking. Now, I ask you to return to the image of the last suitcase you packed. What did it look like upon your return? Was everything meticulously folded, clean laundry, souvenirs neatly bubble wrapped? Perhaps for some of us that's true. My backpack when I came home, overstuffed, dirty, items bulging out of the pockets. In fact, I had to purchase a second bag in Spain to carry the very same items back home with me again. It just didn't fit in the same bag on my return home. And why do we expect it all to fit the same way when we finish our journey? If we are privileged to be taking a trip that we have planned for, we can be meticulous in our packing and preparation. But too often on our return from our journeys, we don't give ourselves the time to incorporate what we learn back into our lives. We expect that what we learn will fit neatly. Instead, we are faced with a hard process that is both beautiful and painfully recalibrating. The Reverend Josh Pollock, a Unitarian Universalist minister from Connecticut, suggests, and I quote, "Coming home requires its own kinds of courage and strength, its own kinds of persistence and endurance. It requires vulnerability and humility." Coming home from a pilgrimage is akin to the incorporation or end stage of any spiritual journey. We unpack the untidy and bulging suitcases we have filled along the way. If we are lucky, if we are truly lucky and blessed, if we have gained anything, we struggle really with a problem of abundance after our journey, like a pilgrimage. We pull things that we have learned out of bulging pockets and we try to find a new home for them in our lives. We carefully unwrap delicate souvenirs of our travel. Sometimes those take the form of actual keepsakes, but for a spiritual journey, these can be delicate realizations about ourselves, our newfound desires and directions for our lives. A greater sense of belonging that also brings with it potentially precarious renegotiations with the people and the world around us. For me, that meant ending my career at that university and beginning a new path rooted in my faith tradition. For me, the end of one literal pilgrimage was the beginning of an entirely different journey. To this day, I continue to unpack from that pilgrimage. I've had to discard items that don't fit, making difficult choices about new learning and new perceptions. I have also rejoiced and been made more whole with what I have learned. What will the incorporation stage mean for our COVID journey? No one can say for sure, because the learnings from this experience will change us forever. They will change our children forever. Our society, hopefully, will reconsider what healthcare means and how our educational systems function. Perhaps there will be a continued and reinvigorated attention to our planet and ecosystems. Maybe we won't take travel or even a simple trip to the local park or lakeshore for granted. Perhaps we will no longer take for granted seeing our friends for an impromptu lunch date. American author Wendell Berry writes, "And the world cannot be discovered by a journey of miles, no matter how long, but only by a spiritual journey, a journey of 1 inch, very arduous and humbling and joyful, by which we arrive at the ground at our own feet and learn to be at home." The end of a pilgrimage is a coming home, but for some of us, learning to be at home with ourselves is a continual unpacking, a continual unfolding of our lives. For us, right now, we are in our literal homes more than we would perhaps choose to be. We are trying to be safe for both ourselves and for others. And yet, being at home right now is like a special kind of journey. It feels like a pilgrimage in which we offer everything that we once held to be normal in exchange for new learnings. And guess what? It's not all going to fit back in that backpack. Our souvenirs and new insights from this journey won't all fit again. We're going to have a long and difficult unpacking process after this. And that's okay. And that's right. And eventually, we and our world will be stronger and safer for everyone. We will find a new way of coming home from this journey, even if that means wearing our favorite hiking boots only in our backyards for a while. Maybe as we make this spiritual journey together of communal safety and care in a time of pandemic, we can find new ways of feeling rooted and grounded, strong, like those worn-out hiking boots made us feel once. Let us continue to journey through this, perhaps separated but not alone. The learnings, the new understandings we may say to each other. And in truth, It is a buen camino. Buen camino, indeed.
Good morning. My name is Dale Skaggs, and I invite you now to join in a spirit of generosity. We know this coronavirus pandemic is affecting our members in many different ways, but for those of us who can give right now, it is more important than ever to share our resources with people who have been harder hit by the pandemic. Our church supports members and friends of our congregation spiritually, emotionally, and materially, and supports people in Milwaukee through our relationships with our community partners. Your pledges are the foundation of our congregation and the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. We have a special fund for people who need financial support called the Minister's Discretionary Fund. You can give to the church by texting 73256 with the message "Give to UU $." That's the word give, the number 2, UU $. Follow the prompts and choose pledge payment, non-pledge gift, or minister's discretionary. You can also give to First Church by going to our web-based giving link. That's at onrealm.org/FUSM/give/First You can see both these options on your screen. We also encourage you to give directly to our community partners. You can find a list of their needs on our website at uumilwaukee.org/support-Milwaukeeans-COVID-19, which you can see on your screen. This summer, we are highlighting the work of the Bread of Healing Clinic, a neighborhood-based clinic on Milwaukee's north side for individuals with financial or other barriers to quality health care, including medical, dental, vision, and behavioral health care. The clinic serves people of 52 different languages and is committed to achieving health, not simply eliminating sickness. Now more than ever, we know that health is an issue of social justice, a right that belongs to all people, not just a commodity to be delivered on the basis of finances. A link for direct contributions to the clinic should be on your screen. All of your offerings to our community partners and to First Church will be gratefully received. And now, as always, but especially at this time when our interdependence is so evident, thank you for your generosity.
Wanderer, your footsteps are the road and nothing more. Wanderer, there is no road. The road is made by making the journey itself. By journeying, one makes the path, and upon glancing behind, one sees the path that never will be traveled again. Wanderer, there is no road, only rolling waves upon the sea. May we find comfort in the knowledge that we are on this path together. May we face anxieties with grace and a sense of rootedness. May we pass through this liminal space and time knowing that it may be hard, but in the end, it has always been and will continue to be un buen camino.